Every single night, you willingly paralyze yourself, hallucinate wildly, and allow toxic waste to flood the delicate tissues of your brain. And somehow, you consider this restful. But the most terrifying part isn't the biochemical warfare happening inside your skull, it's that statistically, the way you physically lay your body down to endure this process is actively working against your survival. You spend exactly 33% of your life completely defenseless, and you are probably doing it entirely wrong. For the last century, we've treated sleep like plugging in a smartphone battery, power down the hardware and wake up at 100% capacity. But historical records and modern biomechanical data paint a vastly different, far more violent picture. If you look at medical texts from the 16th century, human sleep was not a passive event. It was a carefully orchestrated, biphasic physiological reset. Today, epidemiological surveys show the fallout of our modern habits. Approximately 7% of adults stubbornly sleep on their stomachs, 38% lie flat on their backs, and over 50% curl up on one of their sides. You might think your preferred position is just a matter of personal comfort. It isn't. It is an unconscious anatomical gamble. When you drop into the deepest stages of non-REM sleep, your blood pressure plunges by up to 20%, your core body temperature drops by 2 degrees Fahrenheit, and your skeletal muscles completely lose their structural tone. You are essentially a heavy, gelatinous sack of bones yielding entirely to the brutal force of gravity. If you are positioned incorrectly during this compromised state, you aren't just waking up with a stiff neck. You are systematically compressing major arterial pathways, restricting the vital flow of cerebrospinal fluid, and forcing your internal organs to fight a losing battle against hydrostatic pressure. To understand why your current sleeping position might be slowly destroying your health, we have to look at the sheer mechanical stress you endure the moment you lose consciousness. Let's start with the absolute worst choice a human can make, the prone position or stomach sleeping. From a purely biomechanical standpoint, sleeping on your stomach is an unmitigated disaster. To avoid suffocating face down, you are forced to rotate your cervical spine nearly 90 degrees and hold it under tension for hours. This extreme rotation severely compresses the vertebral arteries, the crucial vessels supplying roughly 20% of the oxygen-rich blood to your brain. Over the span of a few years, this sustained torsion accelerates spinal disc degeneration and practically guarantees chronic musculoskeletal pain. But what about sleeping on your back? The supine position is endlessly championed by dermatologists because it prevents facial wrinkles. That is fantastic news if your only priority is aesthetics while your airway collapses. When you lie flat, gravity pulls the heavy base of your tongue directly downward. For the 4 to 5% of normal adults who habitually snore, and the estimated 1 billion people globally suffering from obstructive sleep apnea, back sleeping turns breathing into an exhausting physiological struggle, repeatedly spiking cortisol levels and destroying cardiovascular recovery. So, by process of elimination, we are left with sleeping on your side. And this is exactly where the science gets incredibly strange, because your body is not internally symmetrical. The plumbing of your digestive and cardiovascular systems is heavily biased to one side. And speaking of holding things, you should be holding your mouse and clicking subscribe to this almost dead channel before it flatlines entirely. Because if we look at the sheer anatomical weight of your organs, gravity is rarely your friend. Your liver, weighing over 3 pounds, sits on the right side of your abdomen. Your stomach sits predominantly on the left. If you sleep on your right side, the relaxed lower esophageal sphincter at the top of your stomach is positioned perfectly above the gastric pool. This allows highly corrosive gastric acid, strong enough to dissolve razor blades, to leak directly into your esophagus. This is exactly why clinical gastroenterology studies prove that right-sided sleepers experience statistically higher rates of nocturnal acid reflux. But the true danger dictating your lifespan isn't happening in your stomach. It is happening entirely inside your skull. The scientifically superior way to sleep, the singular position optimized for neurological preservation, cardiovascular efficiency, and gastrointestinal safety, is the left lateral decubitus position. Sleeping on your left side. But to understand this massive biological advantage, you have to understand the glymphatic system. Discovered just over a decade ago, in 2012, the glymphatic system is your brain's macroscopic waste clearance mechanism. During your waking hours, your active neurons burn immense energy, leaving behind toxic byproducts like a sticky protein called beta-amyloid. The accumulation of beta-amyloid plaques is a primary biomarker for Alzheimer's disease. Here is the terrifying part. This neurological sanitation system is almost entirely inactive while you are awake. It only turns on when you are unconscious in deep, slow-wave sleep. When you cross that threshold, your brain cells literally shrink in volume by up to 60%, allowing cerebrospinal fluid to aggressively wash the accumulated toxic waste out into your circulatory system. Data from dynamic contrast-enhanced MRI studies reveals something astonishing. This vital glymphatic flush operates most efficiently when you are lying on your side. Left side sleeping optimizes the flow because it perfectly aligns with the body's natural venous drainage pathways. Furthermore, because your stomach is on the left, gravity pulls the gastric acid downward, safely trapping it away from your esophagus and practically eliminating acid reflux. Additionally, your aorta arches to the left, meaning left side sleeping physically facilitates optimal, gravity-assisted blood flow back to the heart, significantly reducing your cardiac workload. The absolute ideal configuration, verified by orthopedic data, is lying on your left side with a firm pillow placed directly between your knees, neutralizing the rotational stress on your lower lumbar spine. So, lay on your left side, put a pillow between your legs, and let gravity do the work. It is the closest thing to an anatomical cheat code you will ever find. But even if you master this perfectly optimized position, your brain retains one final, deeply paranoid survival mechanism that you cannot control. It is a fascinating biological phenomenon called the first night effect, rigorously documented in clinical polysomnography studies. When you try to sleep in a completely new environment, a strange hotel room or a friend's couch, your brain absolutely refuses to fully shut down. Taking a direct evolutionary cue from migratory birds and dolphins, who literally sleep with one eye open to monitor for predators, your brain executes a localized version of the exact same protocol. During that first night in an unfamiliar place, the left hemisphere of your brain remains in a heightened state of hypervigilance. It stays highly reactive to any subtle noise, while only the right hemisphere drops into deep, restorative sleep. You are, quite literally, functioning half awake for the entire night, silently guarding against nocturnal threats that haven't existed for 10,000 years. You might be perfectly aligned and completely flushed of neurotoxins, but deep down in your evolutionary circuitry, you are always waiting for the tiger to strike.